It's mildly moist this morning. It's what we love to call drizzle. Faux shizzle, madrizzle, manizzle. And I find it the most annoying conditions to ride in. If it was pelting down rain, that's fine. You can expect that. So when you just get this misty little rain that the camera's probably not even picking up, to just wet the road, to just make it slippery, to just be wet enough for all the other drivers to suddenly forget how to drive, because that's what happens when it rains. It's like they just completely lose the ability to drive. I've never quite understood. Oh my god, it's rain. I better forget how to drive. Or go incredibly slow. Okay, I better drive 20 kilometers under the speed limit, because I don't think when they set the speed limit for this road that they considered it may actually rain at some period. So what do you do to ride in the rain? Well, for one, you get a bit wetter than if it wasn't raining. So you possibly need to take some steps to prevent getting too wet. As a long-term rider, one thing I can tell you as a male, and I don't know if this is true for females as well, I can be wet all the way through, but as soon as my balls get wet, that's it, I've had enough, I'm out. I don't know why. As soon as I'm sitting in wet underwear, no more riding for me, that's it, I'm gone, I'm finished. Today I possibly should have a pair of wet weather pants on, because it's actually raining more than I thought it was going to. So I'm going to have some fairly wet knees when I get to work, which is fine, because I'll just hang them up to dry. As far as riding, there's only a couple of things I do differently when it is wet like this. On this bike I tend to stay away from the Quickshifter. The only reason being that it does snap into gear, reasonably hard, and if you can reduce a bit of wheel spin, that's fine. The other thing to be wary of is cold tyres. Even though I've been on this for a little while, I'm sure I've still got stone cold tyres. So I basically treat it like I've got cold tyres for the whole ride, whether I have or not, because it's probably a bit more realistic to what's actually going on. I've got a really itchy nose. The other thing that I tend to think about, and I do actually think about this, is not braking. Of course you have to brake, and in an emergency situation you more than likely will have to brake, but what I do try to think about is, instead of braking, using some avoidance. So I tend to just give myself a little bit more room, slow down the whole riding process, and hopefully give my brain just that little bit longer to process some information and not have to grab a handful of brake, because I'm sure you've all seen videos of blokes grabbing a handful of brake, slight turn on the bars and just going over in the wet. Well, I don't want to be that bloke. If I am that bloke, it will make it to YouTube, and I will make sure of it. And the other thing I'm more careful of is the throttle. If you ride something with a bit of grunt, then you have to think about that. Oh, knees are saturated.